Hello and welcome to the Wilder Lincolnshire Podcast from the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust. I'm Melvin Pryor. With me today, Professor Libby John at the University of Lincoln. Hello.
Hi Melvin.
You've brought the sun out.
We have, yeah. It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
It's gorgeous. We're talking about all sorts of things here, but in detail, we want to talk a bit about how people get into conservation and careers in conservation. So let's start with you. When did that interest start?
I've always been interested in wildlife, wildflowers, ever since I was a little girl. So that was an inspiration from my family, my grandmother, my next door neighbour. It's the people you meet, isn't it, who get you started.
Did you grow up in the countryside?
No, but I was lucky enough to have a grandmother who lived in the country, so that was nice. But I always loved being outdoors.
But that's interesting. See, I naturally said in the countryside, but we've got wildlife, nature in our towns and cities as well.
Absolutely. There are lots of things that live in towns and cities. So, for instance, here we have over 40 species of wildflower just around this pond that we're standing in front of, that nobody's planted, they just live here. So isn't that amazing?
So as a youngster, did you get involved with pond dipping and those sorts of things as well?
Yes, and field trips. Through in the days when A-level students did residential field trips, they were inspirational as well. So, yeah, lots of opportunities to be out and about.
And was there wildlife and conservation in the school curriculum before you moved on to university?
No, this was long ago, Melvin. So let's be honest, we were concerned. I think Silent Spring had been out for about 10 years when I went to university, or maybe it was in the ether anyway. So if you remember that book that was very instrumental in getting people thinking about conservation. But the conservation movement as a whole was, I think, just getting going in those days.
Did you have in your mind that that's the direction and the career you wanted to have?
Well, not just that. I knew I was fascinated by ecology and plant ecology, and I wanted to do research. So that's what took me forwards, and that's where I gained my knowledge base and gained so much experience working at different universities in different countries around the world, in different ecosystems. So I was very lucky to have that background and experience.
And where did you study at university?
I studied at Sussex as an undergraduate doing biology, and then went on to Imperial College London to do environmental technology, and then I did my PhD at the University of Alberta in Canada, where I did a PhD working in the Rocky Mountains, which was wonderful. Absolutely spectacular place to work.
How long were you there for?
4 years, and then I went on to do a postdoc in the Yukon. The Yukon is an amazing wildlife paradise, so that was incredible, and that's where I met my husband.
And then how did that lead to a career? What did you decide to do with those qualifications and things you'd learned?
Well, I went on to an academic career, which is why I'm here now. I found that I loved teaching, so with those qualifications I got a permanent role at a university and was able to engage in research and teaching, and found that I love both equally, and inspiring students about the natural world I think is perhaps the thing I'm most passionate about.
I was going to say that is your passion. It's teaching the next generation, isn't it?
Yes, and allowing them to see, which is the subject today, that there is a role for them in conservation, a really important role in conservation and in sustainability more generally. That's so important, that they can feel empowered, that they can make a difference.
And in the time that you've been teaching, have you noticed more and more people wanting to get into conservation and finding out more?
I think so. I mean, yes. There are more jobs in conservation and clearer career paths than there were back in the 80s when I was a fresh graduate. So there are a lot more jobs in conservation than there were then, and I think many more opportunities. So yes, as the possibilities grow, the opportunities grow, more people see that it can be for them.
And not just the students on the courses you're involved with. Do you feel that generally in the environment of the university, young people are more interested in conservation and nature as well?
I think they're interested in sustainability. They want to live on a planet that has a future, and that that applies to all students. So they might not think about nature conservation specifically, but there's a role for them. Really, there's a whole range of skills that can feed into nature conservation. The students who are here with us today are studying on degrees that directly relate to nature and conservation, but whether you're a computer scientist, an accountant, an artist, you can have a role in conservation. We need them all.
You haven't got to be the one in waders in the pond clearing it out.
You haven't got to have that, and you don't have to have that necessarily, that skill set. There are so many skills that conservation charities and conservation organisations need, the whole gamut of skills that you could learn at a university.
And what about careers and opportunities? What sort of things are the students learning here on the courses you're involved with?
Well, they're learning a lot about habitats, about species, about ecology and the principles of ecology. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years is how the basic principles of ecology have become embedded in conservation. So we're learning more and more about how to manage ecosystems and let go of ecosystems so they can manage themselves. So students will learn all of that. They'll learn to identify plants and animals, they'll learn to handle data, they'll learn communication skills, they'll learn to talk to people from different disciplines, they'll learn a whole lot of skills that they'll use in a career in conservation.
And there are actual jobs at the end of it all, because we often hear about, yes, you can study for this and study for that, but people, bottom line, have to earn a living as well, don't they?
They do have to earn a living, and yes, there are jobs in conservation. At the moment, because of government initiatives like Biodiversity Net Gain, there are jobs in planning, there are jobs working with developers, there are jobs with a whole range of organisations that provide biodiversity credits. There are jobs in the rewilding estates, of which there are several around Lincolnshire, as well as the environmental charities like the wildlife trusts. So yes, there's a lot of jobs out there at the moment. We just need great people to go and fill them.